Emil, thank you very, very much for an excellent presentation. And Celia's asked me to wrap up the afternoon's proceedings. I've scribbled a few notes. I'm definitely not in any way going to be able to replicate the high quality and content of the information that we have been given and shown during the course of the afternoon. Thank you very much to each one of the speakers for your fantastic contribution. Starting off with Steve, who has certainly not just set the scene, but told us that he is a successful owner of wobblers, but has shared a vast amount of knowledge with us about this condition that we, as in the horse world, call the wobbler, the horse that is ataxic, that is uncoordinated, and especially the young horse as it affects our industry, the thoroughbred industry in particular. Not only the thoroughbred industry, but also standardbred industry in other parts of the world where they're big and important. And of course also those who are working more and more in the warm blood sphere, the sport horse sphere, where we see very similar things, also at similar ages actually, but we're not looking as closely because those horses actually have only learned to work for a living at an older age. So what struck me, especially in what Steve was describing and telling us as a first point, was the epidemiology of what we consider to be the wobbler. And what has also struck me, although it hasn't really come out, is a difference in what you are seeing, the numbers of cases you are seeing, and the differences in differential diagnosis, the different conditions that can lead to similar pictures that you have in rich store in North America compared to what we appear to have in our latitudes and longitudes here in Europe. As Tim pointed out, probably we can say with a certain degree of more safely that when we're confronted with an ataxic horse here in the UK and certainly central northern Europe, it's more likely to be a problem of the cervical spine rather than other causes that might be infectious, be they viral or other. So there is a difference. We are probably seeing the same age distribution and sex predilections. In other words, males, colts are more likely to be affected than fillies, and we all are all equally concerned with the accuracy of achieving a correct and accurate diagnosis in order to advise owners, the insurance industry, and also be able to provide a rational form of treatment, and far more importantly, probably a rational prognosis, whether this animal is treatable or not treatable for the use that it's intended for, or who we hope it shall be intended for, and also from a welfare point of view in the context of all risks mortality insurance. I found it fascinating to listen to Tim describing how possibly we survive very well in this country with one center of excellence doing the surgeries, because we probably don't have the cases to keep a huge number of centers of excellence going on it, but there's no reason why others should not jump in and take up the challenge as well and get into the carpentry of fixing necks. I thought what you also pointed out, Tim, is put into in a very excellent perspective, is what are the expectations that we should provide owners and all those associated, including the insurance industry. What are the expectations that can be met with surgical intervention, and how, to what extent can these horses be treated to return to full athletic usefulness or to be salvaged, and the importance also of the owners wanting and to actually help the animal. Without the will to treat and manage these animals, there is no point, to my mind, in doing so, because the extreme is that they end up somewhere in a field unloved and unwanted. So that was, thank you very much for those two fantastic presentations. from those speakers. I thought the panel discussion, I was hoping we'd come out of it with a clear set of absolutely black and white recommendations on how to go forward, and from now on forwards there would never be a dispute or potential dispute in assessing or settling a wobbler claim. I think we all agreed that it's a very subjective subject and that there will always be discussion, but basically that certainly at the level of bloodstock insurance at Lloyd's, in the Lloyd's market, there is always a pragmatism usually wins, and that there is always a form of discussion and negotiation in all cases, and that's certainly one thing I've learned in the many, many years that I've been involved with the Lloyd's market. Richard, I thought you summed up and presented beautifully in a very, very objective way what is a very subjective subject, and I think you really put the science behind the subjectivity of what is ataxia and the difficulties that we have in actually each of us describing what is obviously an abnormal animal in front of us to the same level, and how to go forward with such an interpretation. And leading on to that, I thought, Emil, the AC Milano, I'm not quite sure. Really? Well, I guess maybe it's because of their lab. But anyhow, viva AC Milano. I'm not sure whether anybody's out there who can put up another £250,000 lab, but certainly it would be very, very useful to all of us if we could go down the route of objectively assessing ataxia in horses. And I think you've shown a very good way of how that can be achieved. And certainly I think where the future lies in it, and where together with diagnostic imaging, we will hopefully get safer diagnoses of the wobbler syndrome. And to that, to close the circle, I didn't mention what was mentioned obviously quite a lot, and that is the use of diagnostic imaging, and how really myelography has remained the gold standard, but probably the gold standard might now have been moved into the sphere of CT myelography, and that to me made a lot of sense. So I can see that being a very, very useful way forward, as Tim has described. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had a most enjoyable afternoon. I hope that we've been able to provide through the Trust information for you. And I would like you to, together with me, to thank the speakers for the huge amount of work and contributions they've made this afternoon in the usual way. Before I introduce you to Chris Garibaldi, who is the director of the Natural Heritage Centre, sorry Chris, who will give you a quick description of where you are, what you're at, and what awaits you if you wish to take a tour through the centre before joining those who are joining us for dinner. Join us for dinner over at the Chocolate Club rooms. But first of all, thank you very much to Steve, Tim, Richard, and Emil for a great contribution this afternoon, and also thank you very much to David and Charles for joining in the panel and standing up and taking a pummeling as well with all the rest of us and contributing extremely well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.